Christ? In the Spirit of Christ? When I was 9 years old, I cheated at a glow-in-the-dark skeleton game. I know that sentence probably sounds completely ridiculous for a preacher to say, especially when they don't have to. But I did. It's just two church kids sitting cross-legged on the floor, trying to win the game. And I remember this day clear because it's bugged me since that day. My parents were always trying to help me find friends. I was very awkward at age 9, lived out away from people, kids at school didn't like me, and so they'd always try to pair me up with kids. Some of the kids I didn't want to have anything to do with them. Some of them turned out to be okay, but none of it became lasting. I was on. So they dropped me off at one of the members' homes who had a grandson who was deaf. And it made talking to him difficult because I had no sign language. And so we figured it out. So it's a preacher's kid and a grandkid playing together. And it was all right. I mean, it's hard when you can't communicate. Come on. But here's what I remember distinctly. There was a game that was called Mostly Ghostly. And it had little skeletons that would glow in the dark. And you had to put the skeleton together. And whoever got the skeleton together won the game. And man, I wanted to win this game. There was a catch. The other person, if they spun right, could take one of your skeleton bones. And this kid kept taking mine. I'd be one bone away from winning the game, doing a victory dance, and he would spin the femur, and off would go the femur. I had it. But when I spun, I moved the spinner just a little bit. And I won the game. Problem was, he caught me. And he starts moaning and guttural sounds. He's signing like crazy. His mom comes running in and says, "What's wrong?" And all I can assess from the sign language that he said, "Mark cheated." And his mom, his grandma, she signed and spoke at the same time. So she signed and said, "Mark did not cheat. He's a preacher's kid. Preacher's kids don't cheat." They do.
That one's fine.
Everything I need to. Then I watched this kid get punished for telling the truth. And I shut my mouth. Because the image of me, of a preacher's kid that doesn't lie, felt better than the image of me that lied and watched someone who told the truth about me be punished. So that's heavy on me. I mean, that's a long time ago, at least 10 years. You think I'd let something like that go? But instead, I use it as a reminder. Because that day, that kid learned that those who are on a higher position, image-wise, get off the things. They're not held accountable. Let it stop. And those who are now on that highway. They get in trouble. And sometimes they get in trouble just for telling the truth. Mark cheated. And I did. And once you see something like that, those of a higher position being assumed that they're untouchable, and those in a lower position who are, you can't unsee it, at least I can't. I've carried that with me every day since I was 9. Once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. You start seeing how easy it is for one person to stand in a safe place where everybody else carries the collateral damage. You start seeing how easy it is to be trusted without even having to earn it. How easy it is to be defended before anybody asks what happened. How easy it is to look down from a place you did not even realize you were standing on and stand in judgment. And that's where the image of rooftops hit me. Been thinking about that lately after I read a book by Rachel Held Evans. She, in this book, I can't remember the topic, but she decides to take all the biblical have-tos in the Old Testament that are applied to women and live them for a year. Now, she's not the only person who did this. There's one guy who lived all the laws of the Old Testament for a year and he wouldn't shave. Okay, but she did this, and it's comical if you read it, her trying to implement these laws that don't make sense, especially in today's world, because she tries to, if they tell her she had to call her husband master. And she is a quite strong woman. They'd be like me asking Jess, from now on, can you call me master? Well, one of my favorite parts is where she sentences herself to a roast. She's a little snarky. She's got a sassy mouth. And her husband is a recipient of that most times. And so when she read the biblical law in Proverbs, it says, better live in the corner of a roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. She reversed it. And instead of making her husband go to the roof, she went to the roof. And if you drove by, you would see her from time to time sitting on a roof with her laptop writing as she punished herself for some snarky statement she made to her husband. And the problem was she was good at it and she did it often, and she spent an awfully long time on this roof. And she knew that she got it wrong. She would understand what Proverbs says. Proverbs says if the person you're living with is being snarky, snarly, unlivable to be with right now, then go up on the roof. It's better to do that than to say something you regret. And so the men folk go up on the roof to get away from what's happening in the house. She flipped it. I thought that was so funny. You got to read it. Then I got to thinking about David. And the rooftop's not funny at all. See, Rachel, she got on the roof using side. David climbed the roof the way power climbs the roof. In 2 Samuel it says that all the soldiers, King David, went into battle. And what's unique is David didn't go with them this time. Kings go into battle. Kings do not ask their soldiers to do something they wouldn't. Kings face the same harm that their soldiers do. And usually David did, but not this time. The biblical witness tells us that Bathsheba was bathing on a roof, and she caught the king's eye. That's what you're told in Sunday school, right? Oh, Bathsheba just seducing King David. He's innocent. He's the king. Of course, why would she bathe on the roof and undress herself and get the king all hot and bothered? And she's the root of all evil. And we're good at blaming women for stuff that really they had nothing to do with it. And this is one of those cases. Bathsheba's on the roof after her menstrual cycle. And that's important. Nobody likes to talk about menstrual cycles anytime, especially you hear it from the pulpit. I understand that, but you need to hear it. After you had your menstrual cycle, you had to spiritually cleanse yourself with a special bath. She was following the Torah. She was there in her private residence where they had the bathtubs on the roof. That's just the way they made homes back then. That's where they placed them. She's in her private space worshiping. She was not giving David an invitation. She was having a moment of prayer. And see, David was the one who had the highest roof in the land. He was looking where he should have looked. Just the way it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And usually the way I was taught the story in Sunday school is, David sent this guy over, had a talk with Bathsheba. Hey, Bathsheba, you think the king's hot? And Bathsheba's like, well, I'm married. Yeah, but he's still hot. He's king. Like, he can work something out. No. David saw her. David wanted her. David took her. It wasn't a friendly suggestion. He said to his person, go get her, bring her here. And she was brought into the king's roof of power and had no say. Matter of fact, in the story, she says almost nothing. David takes her. He takes what he wants. Because he's on top of that rooftop. And for him, Bathsheba was not a human being. She was something he wanted. And then the only words Bathsheba speaks. King David, I'm pregnant. And David tries to cover it up. And people help him. He has her husband killed in battle. So he can make her his wife. Rooftops aren't funny when it's about a power imbalance. And we have a whole lot of people in our world staying on rooftops looking down at people. Families can build them. Churches can build them. Pastors can build them. And Lord help us, sometimes we build them even in the name of God. And once you just stand up there long enough, looking down on those you feel entitled to look down on, you stop seeing others as sacred human beings. You start seeing them as something useful, something that can meet your needs, something you feel entitled to control. David stopped seeing Bathsheba as a person to protect, which was the king's job, and now saw her as something to take. Genesis says Eve saw the fruit, desired the fruit, and took it. David saw, David desired, took. Sin usually always begins with that distorted vision. I think a lot of us grew up inside the church culture where we know something about rooftops. Matter of fact, we built entire systems where certain people are automatically trusted, certain people are automatically not trusted. With things like preachers' kids don't lie. Pastors would never abuse power. Church leaders would never protect themselves over vulnerable people. Except sometimes they do. And sometimes the people on the wrong side of the roof, on the top, they get punished. You tell the truth for being who they are, for not trying to control anybody. I find it very cool. Is that a biblical term? Very cool. But the Bible records it as is. They don't try to cover over David. That's what he did. He stood on the rooftop, he judged somebody else, he got her pregnant, he had to pay a price for that. They don't sugarcoat it. And I find that cool and comforting, because if the Bible being true about David and all of his faults, and the Bible being true about us, we can be true about us and know that that's still part of God's story. Not the other people who did worse than us, not the other people who we have concerns about, not the other people we would nominate whether they belong or not belong to, just not like us or just different. No, with ourselves. We start with ourselves and ask ourselves, where are we standing? Are we on top of the roof looking down in judgment? Are we down the ground living with people and expecting that all of us are God's children? Because rooftop isn't just somewhere out there. It's in here too. It shows up with sarcasm, becomes our native language. It shows up when we'd rather be right than be honest. It shows up when we use our position and our power and our Bible verses and our title, our hurt and our, I'm just telling my truth, voice to make somebody else smaller. And it shows up when we pull away from the people who might actually love us enough to tell us the truth. David didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, this is the day I want to ruin my life and the life of other people. Like, I just want to blow it as a king. You know, they got that too good. I'm just going to make a decision that'll wreck my whole kingship and wreck another woman's life, get a man killed. That's not the way it works. It's not some sudden decision to be off. But most of the time, we just drift there. We get comfortable. One excuse at a time. One little lie at a time. One ignored warning at a time. One moment where I deserve this. Roof by roof, decision by decision. We climb up higher. Look down. Tell those people to find God, you got to move up here. But this is where the gospel. Because David stayed up on the roof, but Jesus stepped down. David used power to take. Jesus used his body to heal. David sacrificed Uriah to protect his enemy. Jesus sacrificed to protect our enemies. David climbed higher into isolation. Jesus descended into human flesh. He descended into poverty, descended into grief. He descended into betrayal. He descended all the way to death, that through his death and resurrection, he redeems us all. Because that's the kind of king that God is. Not the king who stands above the suffering, demanding allegiance, demanding my way or the highway. But the king who climbs down into humanity and says, you will not suffer alone. And Matthew does something. The most beautiful part of the whole book. If you read the first chapter of Matthew gives the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Yes, we find not like a lot. No. In Jesus' direct genealogy, it states David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Matthew forced us to remember thus and wrote them. Great. The mysteries of the poem. God does not erase wounded people. The story of God. He redeems the story they're in. Others try to silence it. The God wrote her name. His only son sent him out of love to save all of us. Now, maybe somebody here needs to do this. Powerful people did some great work. They had no business standing. If system Belgium that protects you made you a whole person forward in this training, the system shouldn't have been top group to start with. Little top woman still haunt you. Understand that it is not the fight. Because the gospel is not a story of man climbing the ladder to God. The gospel is a story of God climbing down to reach us. Not after we get everything we can. Not after we have a good explanation of why we did what we did. Not after we figure out how to make the story less complicated. Less forgettable. God comes all the way down. To ground up. True. To us. So my invitation today is kind of simple. If you're on the high road, okay. Come down to the place you have. Come down to the place where you have to act ignorance, but you're not. Come down to the place where shame keeps telling you to hide. Because if you came out in reality, you wouldn't look quite like with yourself. Because Christ is not standing with them. It's not on top of them. I'm all the way down. Christ is on the ground already. I'm just those who know the truth. So there was this time, still on top of that area. She did this. I watched it. See, that's in the law. God help me. It's bracing, it's just a time question.